Good evening, friends. It's Pat at Dancing Moon Travel here with another episode of Let's Talk Travel. Let's do a hypothetical situation. Let's say that you've been waiting for a year, you have booked yourselves on an Antarctica cruise. You're going to be 21 days cruising South America and Antarctica. You are sitting aboard your aircraft waiting to depart from Denver when it is announced that you are on that flight for 2 hours and they announce that your flight is canceled. You have to disembark the aircraft. Your cruise is scheduled to depart, and you are not going to make that departure. You have $35,000 invested in this cruise, fully paid, and you are not going to make that departure. What in the world do you do? Well, folks, this actually happened to some Dancing Moon Travel clients. They were aboard their aircraft. They sat there for 2 hours and the flight was scrubbed and they had to disembark. There was no other flight out that they could take to make it to that departure anytime to get to that ship. So they were stuck. Fortunately for our clients, they had travel insurance. So they were covered. Everything was taken care of. They're actually rebooked and going to be taking that cruise again very, very shortly. But it actually happened. And these kinds of things do happen in the real world. And that's why I want to talk to you this evening about travel insurance. First question, who should have travel insurance? Well, in my opinion, everyone who travels should have insurance, but especially 100% of people who leave the shores of the United States should have travel insurance in place when you depart. It is imperative. You would sooner leave, as far as I'm concerned, without your clothes on than you should leave without travel insurance in place. It's just that important. So people, I get it. I begrudge every nickel I spend on insurance. And I include my automobile insurance. I include my homeowners and the stupid flood insurance that I have to carry down here in Florida. Well, I don't have to carry it, but the prudent thing to do where we live is to have flood insurance. We are near water. We're not on the water, but we are relatively near the water, and we are 10 feet above sea level here in Florida where I live. And so the prudent thing to do is to have that flood insurance in place. And we cover our home and we cover our contents both, because something could happen. Fortunately, when Hurricane Ian came through, water didn't get into our house, but it easily could have. It was just fortunate that it did not happen. So everyone, particularly if you are leaving the shores of the United States, you need to have insurance in place. Now, what exactly is travel insurance anyway? Why do you need it? What is it? What does it cover? Well, to some extent, where you live makes a difference, because every state has different insurance regulations. So plans are tailored for the legal requirements for every state in the union. As a travel advisor, I cannot sell you insurance if you live in Canada or anywhere else outside the USA. I can only sell insurance as a travel advisor to our clients who reside in the USA. and there are certain requirements. I am not an insurance agent. I don't have a complete understanding of the ins and outs of insurance, but I do have opinions, and I'm going to share some of those. But I want to start off with first saying, what does insurance cover? What are the things that travel insurance is meant to help you with in the event things happen? For most policies that we sell, cancellation for covered reasons is up to 100% of what you have spent to the money that you have invested in that cruise, in that trip to Europe, whatever it is. The trip cancellation for a covered reason is covered under almost every policy that we sell through Dancing Moon Travel. Now, what are covered reasons? That would be things, and here again, there's going to be some differences depending on your state of residency, but for the most part, that's going to cover if you become sick, if you suffer an injury, if your companion, somebody you're traveling with, they may not even be in your stateroom, but they're traveling on the trip with you. Something happens to them, and they're unable to travel. All of that is covered. For some circumstances, if you lose your job, if you're unable to get the time off of work, something happens, there's an emergency, perhaps you're an attorney and there's an important litigation that's coming to a head and you cannot leave because of that. Most times that falls under covered reasons as well. If you're traveling without your children, one of them becomes sick, you have a death in the family and are unable to travel, or maybe your grandmother or your mother becomes seriously ill. A close family member has a serious illness. All of those can be covered reasons under travel insurance. Trip interruption. Here again, if you are out on a cruise, say you're in Jamaica, and you get a phone call that grandma has passed away back home, that insurance would cover your trip interruption, and that can be up to 150% of the cost of the trip. So you would get refunded the unused part of your trip, and in addition, it might cover you such things as your airfare and so forth to get back home unneededly. Many policies cover, to various extents, a provider's insolvency. And if we ever learned anything recently, the pandemic taught us that sometimes things happen to the providers. We had very respected names in the travel business that went belly up during the pandemic, and people lost a lot of money. In many instances, travel insurance will cover that. Medical coverage. If you should become ill or injured during your travel, and folks, this kind of stuff happens, we have coverage up to $100,000 for an incident where you are ill or injured. Medical expenses, they mount up very, very quickly. It can be very daunting if you are in Mexico, for example, and you fall and break your arm seriously, and you're going to have a surgical repair. That can mount up to tens of thousands of dollars very quickly, and they don't have the same laws. Your insurance is useless. Your U.S. insurance, in most instances, is totally useless when you leave the shores of the United States. And so if you become ill or injured, it can be very daunting. And sometimes in places like Mexico or other destinations, they may not let you leave the hospital if you haven't paid your bill. And if you have a $30,000 bill for treatment rendered, that can be a problem unless you have insurance in place. We do recommend a minimum of $50,000 of medical insurance when you leave the country. As I said, these expenses, they come quickly, they mount up. I think $100,000 should be a rule of thumb, but certainly as much as $50,000 is good. If you have trip delays along the way, lost baggage helps when the unexpected happens. These insurance companies have 24/7 answering services. If something happens to you, something untoward happens, and you need help with navigating a foreign medical area, need help in finding medical treatment, the insurance providers are there to assist with that. There are optional coverages for canceling for any reason. Maybe you just wake up one morning and say, I don't want to go to Dominican Republic. I don't want to go to Punta Cana. I'm going to cancel that trip I booked. I mean, I've never had that happen, but I suppose it's a possibility. So there are optional coverages as well. They can cover rental cars, various things. But we really recommend that you have that cancellation coverage for certain and medical coverage. Those are two essentials that you do not want to leave home without it. Now, why do you need insurance? I mean, I've touched on many of these things. You may get an idea of why you need the insurance. But folks, life happens, and it doesn't stop happening just because you're on vacation. We have things that have happened to our clients. It's one of the lessons that I learned very early on in my career as a travel agent is the importance of travel insurance. Back, many years ago when I was just starting out, maybe had been a year or two in the business, I had clients that had booked an Alaska cruise tour. They were within 2 weeks of their departure, fully paid in full penalty phase. If they did not go on that trip, they would lose every penny of their investment in that trip, which amounted to over $8,000. Now, that may not be their life savings, but it certainly was a significant investment. The lady involved with this booking took a fall, and she broke her tailbone, and she was unable. She was in terrible pain. And if anybody has ever suffered that injury, it can be very painful, and it takes a long time to heal and get past. There was no way on earth she was able to make that trip. Fortunately, the insurance was in place, so they were covered. They got back the money that they paid. So all was well in their world. Recently, I had a client just in the last few days. We planned a trip to Australia. This was a lifetime trip. We had thrown in everything but the kitchen sink into this tour. I mean, we really had them on the move. They were going to see everything that was worth seeing in Australia. They were still in their first city. They were in Sydney, where they landed, just getting recovered basically, and ready to start. They had done a couple of tours, but they're getting ready to start the main part of their tour. Get up to the Barrier Reef, and they were going to New Zealand. There were so many things planned on this. And she fell crossing a street, broke both bones in her lower leg. And there they were. My phone rang on the Sunday night, 11 o'clock at night. Now, you know that's never good when the phone rings at 11 o'clock at night. And it was them calling from Australia. So I was immediately on the phone making the immediate arrangements, notifying our provider of their situation, and that we would keep them informed, but at least the next few days of the trip had been interrupted and they would be unable to travel. Well, it turns out that their entire trip ended up having to be canceled, and how sad for them. But fortunately, insurance is in place, and hopefully once she has healed and they get back to normalcy, we'll be able to start over again and help them complete that lifetime trip that they had so looked forward to. So that is definitely, these are just real life examples of things that I have had happen, and there's many, many more. Some of them, some more minor, and some of them, equally as impactful as the ones that I've shared with you this evening. We even had one time a client whose husband passed away on a cruise ship, went to bed perfectly fine. They people in, up in age a bit, over 70 years old, but in seeming good health. He had gone to bed that evening and all was well. And when she awoke in the morning, he had passed away overnight. Now, trust me, that can be a major expense when you are traveling. And it happens that sometimes on vacation, someone has a naturally occurring, their life comes to an end while they're traveling. Fortunately, travel insurance has great coverage for that. The policy that we sell most often provides over $1 million in coverage for medical evacuation and repatriation of remains. Should you, come to a demise during your travel, or should you have to be medically evacuated from the region that you're visiting. Trust me, if you have to be life flighted home from South America or Europe or wherever you happen to be, that is a huge expense. And most of the policies, the one particular policy that we sell most frequently does have $1 million in coverage. It varies some from one state to another. So, folks, what I want to tell you today is, friends don't let their friends travel without travel insurance. It is so important that when you plan your trip, plan to cover it with insurance as well. There are many options available. We work with several third-party providers, which is what we recommend. Sometimes we go with the insurance provided through the cruise lines or tour companies. Sometimes it's available there. That insurance that comes through the providers certainly is better than nothing. Frequently, we recommend the third-party providers like Travel Insured and Travel Guard can be the better coverage. So anyway, as I said, we are not travel agents, but we are not insurance agents. We are travel advisors, but we do, whatever you do, recommend that you travel insured. So again, my name is Pat at Dancing Moon Travel. If you have questions about insurance or destinations or what kind of coverage is recommended, happy to talk to you about the importance of insurance one-on-one. So feel free to give me a call. You can reach out to me at any time. We're easy to get hold of. Just if you, my contact information's on this banner that's going across here now. As always, we always have some kind of giveaway. If you are listening live to our Let's Talk Travel program this evening, we're so glad you're out there. We welcome you. We appreciate you so much being one of our faithful listeners. And I want to, this evening, we're going to give away something that I think most everyone will enjoy there. And I'm going to offer a $20 Starbucks gift card to someone who's listening to this program live, listeners only. If you're catching this as a rerun, we're glad you're out there, but this is just for our live listeners. I want you to enter in the comments box right now. In the comments, enter the words travel insured in the comments section now, and someone who is listening live will be entered in tonight's drawing to receive a $20 Starbucks gift card. They have other things besides just coffee. If you're not a coffee drinker, you can get other things at Starbucks as well. So we know that's always a popular item when I give that away. Folks, thank you so much for listening. We're glad you're out there. We love all of you and appreciate you so much. Again, this is Pat at Dancing Moon Travel, advising you to travel insured. Bye for now. See you next week.